All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into how these new Trump tariffs could really shake things up if you're importing stationery, like custom notebooks, planners, all that stuff.
Definitely a hot topic right now.
We're looking at this guide written specifically for U.S. importers, and let me tell you, some of the stuff in here is pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild situation.
Like, did you know these tariffs could add thousands of dollars to your monthly costs? Seriously. But there's also some pretty creative ways importers are finding to, push back.
Yeah, they're getting pretty resourceful for sure.
Like finding new places to source their products besides China and even cutting some new deals with their Chinese partners.
Right. It's not all doom and gloom. There are definitely some options out there.
So let's break it all down. Starting with the problem itself, what exactly is going on with these tariffs?
Well, the gist is that President Trump decided to slap another 10% tariff on top of the ones already in place for things coming in from China.
Oof, that's gotta hurt. And the guide we're looking at, it really paints a picture of how stressful this is for importers. Like you've poured your heart into building this business,
Right.
and then suddenly, bam, these policy changes come along and threaten to totally derail everything.
It's a lot of uncertainty to deal with.
Big time uncertainty. And it's not just the extra costs we're talking about either. The guide mentions all these ripple effects like delays at customs, mountains of paperwork, and even cash flow issues.
Yeah, it can get messy. And it's not just a small handful of businesses affected either.
Right, I was just going to ask about that. How widespread is this impact really?
Reuters has some data on this, and it shows these tariffs hit roughly 44% of all the stuff we import from China, Canada, and Mexico combined.
Whoa, that's massive. So we're talking big bucks here. Potentially tens of thousands of dollars in extra payments every month for folks who import stationery.
Especially if you're working with tight margins like most folks in this business are.
It's got to be a constant worry. Okay, so let's get specific. Let's say you're importing a custom planner that costs $5 to make.
All right, with a 25% tariff, that's an extra $1.25 per planner. Bump that tariff up to 35%, and you're looking at an extra $1.75.
It's a pretty big jump.
50 cents extra per planner, and that adds up fast, especially when you're importing thousands of these things.
Have they not chump change?
And somebody's got to eat that extra cost, right? The guide mentions how worried importers are about having to raise prices and potentially losing customers because of it.
Yeah, I mean, in a market like stationery where there's so much competition,
Right. Everyone's trying to stay affordable.
raising prices is risky business.
Big time. But that's where this guide gets really interesting. Because it doesn't just lay out the problem, it also offers some actual solutions. 5 strategies that importers are using to fight back.
Okay, let's hear.
Strategy number 1, to diversify your sourcing. Don't put all your eggs in the China basket.
Makes sense. Spread the risk a little.
Exactly. The guide's author, they actually shifted 30% of their production to Vietnam, and there's data to back this up too.
Reuters shows that China's share of U.S. stationery imports is already shrinking. So Vietnam seems like a pretty hot alternative right now.
Definitely seeing a lot of movement in that direction.
What about other places, though? Are there other countries importers should be considering?
Well, besides Vietnam, the guide also mentions India and Mexico as possibilities.
Interesting. So how do you choose the right supplier in a new country, though? What are the key things to look at?
The guide stresses the importance of checking out the political situation in the country first. You want to make sure things are stable and there's not going to be any sudden disruptions to your production.
Makes sense. You don't want any surprises.
Then you got to factor in labor costs, of course. And the existing infrastructure, too. Like, do they have the roads and ports and all that to get your products where they need to go?
Right. Got to make sure the logistics actually work out. All right. So diversify your sourcing. That's strategy number 1. What's next?
Strategy number 2 is all about communication.
Oh.
Specifically, talking to your existing suppliers in China.
So basically reach out and say, hey, these tariffs are killing us. Can we work something out?
Pretty much. You might be surprised how willing they are to find a solution.
Really?
They're in this business too, right? They don't want to lose their customers either.
That's a good point. So what kind of solutions are we talking about? What could importers realistically ask for?
Well, the guide's author, they actually got a 3% discount just by talking to their supplier.
Wow, just by having a conversation.
Yeah. Sometimes it's as simple as that.
I guess it never hurts to ask, right? What else can importers try?
Well, the third strategy is all about optimization, specifically optimizing your supply chain.
Okay, so squeezing every bit of efficiency out of the system to kind of offset those tariff losses. I like it. What does that look like in practice, though?
Well, the guide suggests looking into things like lean inventory management.
Lean inventory. Okay.
Yeah.
And what exactly does that mean?
So basically, it's all about minimizing the amount of money you have tied up in stock,
Yeah.
by forecasting demand really carefully
Mm.
and only ordering what you actually need.
So you're not stuck with a bunch of extra stuff if things slow down smart.
Exactly. The guide also mentions consolidated shipments as another way to save money.
So instead of shipping a bunch of small orders, you combine them into bigger ones to get better rates from the shipping companies. Makes sense. Are there any specific tools or platforms out there that can help importers with all this?
Definitely. There's a lot of technology out there that can help streamline logistics.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like, are there any specific examples mentioned in the guide?
Yeah, they talk about Freightos.
Freightos, what's that?
It's a digital freight marketplace, and they say that by optimizing logistics through their platform, importers can cut their shipping costs by up to 15%.
15%, that's huge,
Yeah.
especially when margins are already so tight.
Yeah, every little bit helps.
Okay, so we've covered diversifying your sourcing, talking to your suppliers, and optimizing your supply chain. What's next?
Strategy number 4 is all about getting a little legal savvy.
Oh, like lawyering up.
Not necessarily,
Yeah.
but don't just assume you're stuck paying the full tariff amount.
So there are ways to reduce them or even avoid them completely.
Possibly. This is where working with a trade expert can be really helpful.
A trade expert. Okay.
The guide suggests looking into potential exemptions that your products might qualify for.
Exemptions. Interesting.
Or in some cases, you might be able to reclassify your products under a different tariff code with a lower rate.
Oh, so it's like finding loopholes in the system.
Sort of. It's
Yeah.
more about knowing the ins and outs of the regulations and making sure you're taking advantage of every opportunity available to you.
So where do you even begin with all that? Like, are there any resources mentioned in the guide for importers who want to explore this option?
Yeah, the guide strongly recommends joining industry groups or associations that focus on trade issues.
Trade groups. Okay.
They often have experts on staff who can help you navigate the legal stuff.
So it's like having a team of advisors in your corner. That makes sense. What's the
Mhm.
last strategy?
Last but not least, it's time to reevaluate your pricing.
Ugh, this is the part nobody wants to hear, right? But you got to do what you got to do.
Exactly. The guide offers a few different approaches, though.
Like what?
One idea is tiered pricing.
Okay.
Maybe you increase the price on your premium products a little bit, but keep the more basic stuff at a competitive price point.
So you're giving customers options.
Right. Another strategy is transparency.
Yeah.
Just be upfront with your customers about why you're raising prices.
So explain that it's because of the tariffs and that you're doing everything you can to keep costs down.
Exactly. People appreciate honesty.
It's about building trust.
Right. The guide also mentions bundling as a way to offset price increases.
Bundling.
Like maybe you offer a custom planner with a matching notebook at a discount.
Oh, I see. So you're offering more value for the money.
Exactly.
Clever. These 5 strategies, I mean, they really offer a good mix of proactive moves and ways to adapt to the situation. But before we get into part 2, I kind of want to zoom out a bit because these tariffs, they're not just about stationery, right?
Yes.
They're part of a much bigger strategy that Trump's using when it comes to global trade.
Absolutely. This is about more than just protecting American businesses.
Yeah, it's like a geopolitical chess match.
Right, with each move having consequences that ripple across the globe.
And we need to consider those ripple effects not just for businesses, but for the entire U.S. economy as well.
Absolutely.
Well,
NPR reported that when similar tariffs were put in place in the past, it ended up costing the average U.S. household over $800.
whoa. So this is hitting everyday people's wallets, too.
Big time. And then there's the impact on the global supply chain.
Right. We were just talking about how importers are looking beyond China for sourcing options.
Right.
But is this just the beginning of a bigger shift away from China as the world's factory?
It's hard to say for sure, but
Yeah.
these tariffs are definitely accelerating a trend that was already underway.
Fascinating. In part 2, we'll dig deeper into the long-term implications of all this and how it might reshape the stationery industry as we know it.
Stay tuned. It's going to get interesting.
So we're talking about a potential sea change here in how global trade works,
Right.
like moving away from that made in China model that's been the norm for so long.
Definitely. And it's not just about where stuff is made anymore.
Right. It's about all the other factors that play into it.
Exactly. Like all the relationships, the costs, the politics. It's this whole intricate web that influences global trade.
Okay, so zooming in on the stationery world, what's the long-term outlook here? Like, how will all this reshaping of global trade actually affect businesses that import things like custom notebooks and planners?
Well, the guide we're looking at it suggests this could be a real turning point for a lot of importers.
A turning point in what way?
Like the ones who adapt quickly and really embrace those strategies we talked about in part one.
Right. Diversifying their sourcing, optimizing their supply chains, all that stuff.
Exactly. They're the ones who are likely to come out of this even stronger.
Okay, so what about the importers who don't adapt? What's at stake for them?
Honestly, some of them might not make it.
Yeah.
It's tough, but these tariffs are forcing businesses to make some really tough decisions.
And if they hesitate or just don't innovate fast enough,
They could be in real trouble.
man, that's rough. And it makes you think about the overall market too,
Hmm.
right? Like if those smaller importers start to struggle, could we see the bigger players kind of taking over, more consolidation in the industry?
It's a valid concern for sure.
Mm.
Larger companies, they usually have more resources and flexibility to deal with these kinds of disruptions.
Right, they can absorb those increased costs more easily.
Exactly. Or shift their sourcing strategies more quickly.
So it's like the big fish getting bigger and the smaller ones getting squeezed out.
It's a possibility, but it's not a certainty. This situation, it actually creates a unique opportunity for those smaller importers to really set themselves apart.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Think about the growing demand for sustainable and ethically sourced products.
Right. People are becoming more and more conscious of where their stuff comes from.
Exactly. And smaller importers, they're often in a better position to partner with those artisan producers, the ones who are doing things the right way.
And offering those unique limited edition items that you can't find anywhere else.
Right. They can craft those compelling stories that really resonate with consumers who care about those things.
So these tariffs could actually level the playing field in a way by forcing everyone to rethink their whole approach to the business.
In a way, yeah. It's not just about competing on price anymore.
It's about finding new ways to stand out.
Exactly.
Mm.
Building a brand that stands for something, that can be a powerful differentiator.
Especially in a world where consumers are getting more and more discerning about what they buy.
Absolutely. They want quality.
Yeah.
They want unique offerings. They want to feel good about their purchases.
So it's like turning a challenge into an opportunity to create something truly special.
Exactly.
I like that. It's a good reminder that even in this crazy globalized market, there's still room for the little guys to thrive.
For sure. But thriving, it takes more than just a great product.
Right, you got to have the whole package.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the guide actually talks a lot about the importance of community in all this.
Community.
Yeah, like connecting with other importers, sharing resources, advocating for policies that support their businesses.
Right, there's strength in numbers, especially when you're facing something as complex as these tariffs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about pooling your knowledge, your experience, even your lobbying power to navigate this new landscape effectively.
Makes sense. But let's shift gears for a second and focus on the individual importer. What are some tangible steps they can take to prepare for all this change and make their business more resilient?
Well, the guide offers some really practical advice here. It boils down to building a more robust and flexible business model.
Okay, so more than just reacting to the tariffs, but using this as a chance to build a stronger foundation for the future.
Precisely. It's like giving your business a stress test. Ask yourself the tough questions. Where are the weak points? What can I do to strengthen those areas and make my business more adaptable to change?
I like that. So being proactive instead of reactive.
Exactly. And of course, staying informed is crucial.
Right, the more you know about these tariffs.
The better equipped you'll be to make smart decisions.
That's what we're trying to do here with this deep dive, to give you the information you need to navigate all this.
Exactly.
But beyond just surviving, there's potential for something even greater, right?
Innovation.
Innovation. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but it's not about chasing the next shiny object.
Right. It's got to be meaningful.
Exactly. True innovation. It comes from a deep understanding of your market, your customers, and your own strengths.
Okay, so what does that actually look like in the stationery world? Give me some examples.
Well, it could be something as simple as developing a new kind of paper that's more sustainable,
Okay.
or designing a custom planner that's specifically tailored to the needs of remote workers.
Right, like addressing a very specific niche.
Exactly. Or it could be about exploring entirely new business models, like a subscription service for personalized stationery.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that. And we were talking about sustainability earlier.
Maybe it's about partnering with artists to create limited edition designs using recycled materials.
Exactly. Or sourcing those unique eco-friendly materials like bamboo or hemp.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much potential there. It's about thinking outside the box, challenging those old assumptions.
And finding those unexpected aha moments that can give you a competitive edge.
And this is where those smaller importers might actually have an advantage.
Right.
They tend to be more agile, more willing to experiment.
And less burdened by bureaucracy.
Exactly. They can be the disruptors, the ones who push the boundaries and redefine what's possible in the stationery world.
They can set the new standard for sustainability, ethical production, and creative design.
It's inspiring, isn't it? Like, even with these tariffs looming over the industry, there's this real sense of resilience and creative energy.
Absolutely. There's a fighting spirit, a willingness to adapt and overcome.
And that's what makes this whole situation so exciting. It's a chance for the stationery industry to reinvent itself.
To come out of this stronger and more vibrant than ever before.
I love that perspective. It's a powerful reminder that even the toughest challenges can lead to incredible breakthroughs.
And that's exactly what we'll be exploring in Part 3. How importers are turning these tariff challenges into opportunities for innovation and growth.
We'll dive into some specific examples of businesses that are not just surviving but thriving in this new landscape. All right, so we've talked about the challenges, the strategies, and even like the potential for some big shifts in the market. But now I want to focus on the good stuff, the innovations.
Right, the silver lining.
Exactly. Like, how are importers actually turning these tariff challenges into opportunities to get creative and innovative?
It's honestly pretty inspiring to see. And the best part is it's not just theory. The guide's packed with real-world examples of importers who are not just surviving this whole thing, but actually thriving.
Okay, spill the beans. What are some of the coolest innovations you came across?
One that really stood out to me was this idea of using technology to create a whole new level of personalized stationery.
Personalized how?
Like, imagine an app that lets customers design their own notebooks from scratch. You know, they pick the cover material, the paper type, even little details like page markers or pen loops.
Wow. That's taking customization to a whole new level. It's like not just offering a personalized product, but creating an entire experience for the customer.
Right. It's not just a notebook. It's something unique that they had a hand in creating something that reflects their own personality and style.
And it taps into that whole experience economy thing, right? Like, people are looking for more than just stuff. They want to be involved in the process.
Exactly. They want to feel a sense of ownership and connect with brands on a deeper level.
And let's not forget about sustainability. That was a big theme in the guide, too.
Huge. It seems like consumer demand for eco-friendly products is really pushing the boundaries of innovation in the stationery world.
So what are some of the ways importers are responding to that demand?
Well, the guide mentions importers who are partnering with paper mills that are committed to sustainability, using recycled materials and even experimenting with alternative fibers like bamboo and hemp.
Okay, so it's about sourcing eco-friendly materials, but it goes beyond that, right? Like, what about the actual production process?
The guide talks about companies using solar power in their factories, reducing their carbon footprint, even offsetting their shipping emissions.
So it's like a holistic approach to sustainability.
Right. And this is where transparency becomes really important.
Yeah.
Consumers want to know where their products come from, how they're made, what impact they have on the planet.
They're looking for brands that align with their values.
Exactly. And they can smell greenwashing a mile away. So it's got to be authentic.
You can't just slap a green label on something and call it a day.
Nope. Consumers are way too smart for that.
And this is where those smaller importers might have an advantage again, right? Like, they can be more nimble, more experimental.
For sure. They can try out new ideas and take risks that bigger companies might shy away from.
So they can kind of set the new standard for sustainability and ethical production.
Be the pioneers, the
Yeah.
game changers.
Okay, so we've got personalized tech experiences, a push for sustainability. What other cool innovations are popping up?
Well, Guide also highlights innovations in design functionality, even the way stationery is marketed and sold.
Give me an example.
Take the bullet journaling trend, for
Oh,
instance.
yeah, that's huge.
Importers are creating notebooks and planners with special layouts, thicker paper, even stencils and accessories, all designed specifically for bullet journaling.
Smart. It's about catering to those niche markets.
Right. And those passionate communities, they're the ones who become your most loyal customers.
They spread the word, right? Glowing reviews become true brand ambassadors.
Exactly. And then there's the power of collaboration. The guide talks about importers partnering with artists, designers, even calligraphers to create unique, limited edition products.
Bringing in that outside creative energy. I love that.
It's about creating something truly special that you can't find anywhere else.
And generating buzz and excitement in the process.
That's exactly.
Okay, so we've got personalized tech sustainability, niche markets, creative collaborations. Anything else?
One more thing, and this is a little more on the business side. The guide talks about importers who are experimenting with new models of production and distribution.
Like what?
Things like on-demand manufacturing and micro-fulfillment centers.
Okay, I'm going to need you to break those down for me.
Sure. So on-demand manufacturing means you only make a product when you get an order, which cuts down on waste and allows for even more customization.
Interesting. And what about those micro-fulfillment centers?
Those are smaller, localized warehouses. They can get products to customers faster and more efficiently.
So it's all about streamlining the supply chain, cutting costs, and getting those custom notebooks into people's hands quicker.
Exactly. Another example of how these tariffs are forcing businesses to think outside the box.
It's amazing to see how much innovation is coming out of all this.
This whole deep dive has really highlighted the themes of resilience, adaptability, and embracing change. These tariffs, as tough as they are, they're pushing the stationery industry to evolve and become even more dynamic and exciting.
I love that takeaway. What would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to remember?
Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't let these tariffs hold you back. Use this as a chance to challenge those old assumptions, explore new ideas, and find those innovative solutions that will not only help your business survive, but thrive.
It's not about just weathering the storm. It's about using the wind to set a new course.
The future of stationery is bright, and it's being shaped by those who are bold enough to embrace change.
This has been such an insightful conversation. Thanks for joining us, and remember, you got this.